I'll be responding to these messages right here.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of DMs with PM. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you to host this program. Again, my name is Aruna Neptune, and of course, we are joined by the Honorable Prime Minister. But before we introduce him to this evening's show, we'd like to say special thank you to our listeners and viewers on YouTube as well as Facebook, and not forgetting the various radio stations joining us. Power FM, Fusion FM, Vibes FM Karakou, Hot 98, Star FM, We FM, Top FM. And of course, on Sundays, you can always tune in for the rebroadcast of this show. And for those of you viewing, remember, this is the opportunity for you to directly send your messages or call the Prime Minister on telephone number 423-3104. As always, please share the live and make sure that lots of folks are on the live today, because we are going to have another interesting program. Lots of questions, lots of DMs sent in, and of course we also have the DMs from the street and your phone call. So without any further ado, we get right into it. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope everyone enjoyed the long weekend and is cooking with gas, as we say.
Talking about cooking with gas, last week we found out that your favorite thing to do, well, was to cook, and soup was definitely high up on the list. What soup did you have today?
Split pea.
With what
just
meats?
split. No meat. Just split pea. Simple. I didn't cook it, so you take what you get sometimes.
Okay, well, I hope it worked.
It worked.
So there's another thing we want to find out. I mean, this is about DMs with PM. It's getting to know you as well. And someone said, you know what? We see the Prime Minister, but we don't know the Prime Minister. So I'm like, we're going to use this segment a little bit to find out a little about you. Not everything, but enough so that we can, whet the appetites of our viewers and listeners. So one of the questions was Netflix and chill.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a movie, Netflix kind of chill person, or?
Let's go to the cinema kind of person and chill after.
I like that. Go to the cinema. What is your favorite movies to watch?
Honestly, wide variety. I like drama, I like action, I like comedy. It depends on the mood, but I like good acting and good directing.
Speaking of good acting and directing, over the weekend, I'm sure you've heard of Tyler Perry, who hasn't? On Friday, new movie, highly anticipated. Everyone was waiting because it got, some pretty good, So we were anxiously awaiting it, and it came out on Friday. As usual, a number of black actors and actresses, and it basically had the internet and lots of people in a chokehold in terms of what it was about. So your homework is to look at the movie on Netflix called Straw. Let me tell you why. Because even though, as always, I had my say on it already this morning, Tyler Perry usually depicts, seem to put black women in this particular light. There's a lot of critics, there's a lot of for, there's a lot of against, but the general consensus is women, single mothers, who have to do it alone, who we sometimes see them, but we don't hear their cries. And as someone who is in the media and, of course, hosting a program where I get a lot of those, it resonates. But at the same point, there was so much going on in the movie that it went over a lot of people's head. But I think this is a general takeaway in terms of how single mothers struggle, how hard they have to fight to make ends meet. And even here, you see it all the time, hearing that fathers are not stepping up. As a father yourself, what is your take on that?
No, it's a major crisis in not just Grenada, but in the Caribbean, and particularly the Black Caribbean. Men, far too often, simply do not step up to their responsibility, their obligations to take care of their children. It's one thing if you and the mother of the child or children no longer sees eye to eye. It's a completely different thing to abandon your responsibilities to your children. As far as I'm concerned, it's beyond criminal. It almost, to me, the whole point of human existence is obviously for continuation. And if you make children and you don't take care of the kids, essentially you're just a basic animal. And even basic mammals
take care
of their young. So I think it's a major challenge that we face, and it has led to a lot of the problems we encounter in our society. So there's no question that us men have to do a far better job of raising our children and supporting the mothers of our children if we are going to address a lot of the ills we face in the society. So I am unapologetically pro the support of the mothers of children and pro the support of our children. There's no justification or excuse for not supporting your child or your children. And it doesn't just mean handing over material things. I mean actually building a relationship with them.
But we have to take a quick break. But before we go, I'm happy that you raised that point, because in terms of, you hear mothers saying all the time that even though they go through the system, they go through the court, and they probably say, okay, here's $50 a week, $100 a week, but it's not enough in today's economy to take care of said children, and sometimes they just don't pay it. How do we fix that?
Well, I think as it stands now, the government is actually working on a suite of legislation to begin addressing issues like child maintenance in our court system. But if it gets to the point where you have to go to court to get the money out of the male to support his own offspring, then in a sense the entire thing has already failed, because the option of not paying is then jail, and obviously then you're completely helpless and useless, frankly, if you're in jail. So the truth is, it still requires a lot of education, a lot of change in behavior, a lot of change in how we value taking care of our children. Because if the maintenance order is $50 or $100, it's basically saying we don't value taking care of our children. And while I appreciate, obviously, you want to assess the person's means, but it's more than just the money. It's the help, it's the homework, it's the bathing the child, preparing the child, it's the speaking to the child, it's the teaching the child values, it's walking the child to and from school, it's all of it. It's not just the material success or support for the child. So we have to ensure that we understand that fatherhood goes beyond, in today's world, providing $100 or $150 as the case may be.
Okay. Thank you so much. We viewers and listeners, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we have your DMs. Stay right here.
Welcome to the Cinnamon Model, one of the many stunning designs in Project 500. The home offers 944 square feet of living space, not including the veranda. It includes 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a dedicated laundry storage area, all centered around an open kitchen, living, and dining space for everyday comfort. In the current view, with work at 70% completion, having rough plumbing already in place, electrical, interior walls, and ceiling finishes to be installed soon.
Mobility, a common theme woven into the very fabric of human history. From ancient wanderers to modern explorers, our instinct to move, to seek something greater, and to grow has always driven us forward. Imagine a journey into pathways of boundless opportunities and endless possibilities. A collective future where the vibrant rhythms of the Caribbean, rich culture, and welcoming community create unforgettable experiences. Beyond citizenship by investment, we believe in our collective investment of time, resources, and energy that fosters innovation, creates jobs, and enriches lives, driving the growth of an entire nation. The Investment Migration Agency Grenada boasts over a decade of exceptional service and remains committed to guiding you toward global mobility and economic freedom through investment. Your journey becomes our shared story of progress and prosperity. This is an invitation to be part of something greater, something enduring. Begin your journey at imagrenada.gd. IMA Grenada. Unlock the possibilities.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM. So, it's just about time for us to go down in the DMs, as they would say, to get some of your questions. So, let's see what the first one has to say. The public sentiment from Barrow Beauty. Just wanted to say, and I'm guessing we're speaking to the Prime Minister here because I was not on the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I saw you on Real Housewives of Atlanta and thought you looked very attractive. Mr. PM?
Yes, I hope I look attractive on this show too. Thank you very much. Thank you, caller, for that.
All right, so we have another question here from Mike Sherman. Thank you for implementing the self-check-in kiosk at MBIA. When will the immigration landing card be enhanced or eliminated as it feels outdated and cumbersome?
Thank you, Mike, for the question. We are actually hoping to have an electronic ED card shortly. The last stage is for us to be able to have the Customs Department give us their feedback on input. As you are aware, the ED card has immigration information, and on the back side it has the customs information as well. So we want to make sure that we get both of that done electronically. And then once that happens, we will eliminate the paper card. Ideally, we are hoping to get to a point where we don't have ED cards even electronically as well, but that requires both legal and further technological upgrades. But we're starting first with switching to ED cards, and I'm optimistic that certainly by September of this year, we should have the electronic ED cards implemented.
And we have another question via WhatsApp. Jasmine Joseph, hope I got that name right. And the person is asking, have you considered implementing a structured rehabilitation program that allows non-violent inmates to contribute to national development through supervised work in areas such as construction, agriculture, especially assisting farmers in need of labor and country beautification projects?
Thank you, Giselle, for the question. Traditionally, the prison system has had some elements of what has been raised in the question. I think to have a more comprehensive approach, it will actually require penal reform, both in terms of the legislation that governs sentences and the types of sentences, and how we can use the labor of inmates. I certainly support initiatives like this because I think it gives an opportunity for the inmates to be able to gradually be reintroduced into society, to teach them to be responsible, and also for them to engage in industrious activities. But there are programs currently at the prison that deals with that. As you know, for example, the prisoners break bread, they have a farm. The prison itself produces largely a lot of the consumables that are required by the inmates and officers at the prison itself. But we certainly, I think, can do more. And given that the prison is in fact overcrowded, those are some of the areas that we would certainly be able to look at. So thank you for the wise suggestions.
And might I add that prison bread is one of the best bread in the entire Tri-Island state. I don't know what they put in it, but...
Well, I was holding back on saying that myself. But
it seriously is. We have another question on the WhatsApp from Virginia Paul Romaine. She's asking, considering the importance of educating students about Grenadian history, I would like to suggest the introduction of a dedicated initiative in schools such as Grenadian History and Constitution Fridays.
Thank you very much, Virginia, for the suggestion. I can't say that I disagree with it. As you may be aware, we have introduced the teaching of Grenadian history in schools. We have a textbook that was authored by our own Dr. Nicole Philip Dow, and it's been used in schools. So I think reinforcing the importance of history on specific days and reinforcing the importance of the Constitution and the rule of law on specific days, I think will only do well in supporting the overall need to make sure we understand Grenadian history.
Okay. I believe we have another question via the WhatsApp from Jacqueline Archibald. And she's asking, can you shed some light on how Grenada is benefiting from the CBI program and your thoughts on why some countries in the Caribbean are against it?
I would refrain from saying why some countries in the Caribbean are against it because it would allow me, essentially I'd be speculating. I think I could only say if leaders in the Caribbean who are against it have commented on it, you can hear from them why they're against it. But Grenada has benefited significantly from the receipt of citizenship by investment revenues. And let me just state a couple of ways briefly. One, our CBI receipt revenues is actually tied to a debt restructuring program. More than 10 years ago, Grenada had significant debt that it was struggling to pay. We had a debt restructuring, and as part of getting the persons who, or the institutions that Grenada owed debt to, as part of getting them to agree to restructure the debt, meaning to give us a haircut on the debt to take longer term payments, we agreed that if our CBI program reached certain revenues, that we would actually pay funds from the CBI revenues to them as a condition for them accepting the restructuring of our debt. That's one. Two, we've actually used the CBI revenues to pay down our debt. And so you would see that Grenada's debt to GDP has consistently been coming down. What it means in basic language is that when your debt to GDP is coming down, it means ultimately you have more revenues to spend on the things that matter to Grenada, capital projects, recurrent expenditure, rather than simply paying debt. Three, the CBI revenues have funded, particularly in the hospitality and tourism sector, the only large-scale hotels that have been in Grenada over the last 10 years, except for Silver Sands, which was not financed through CBI revenues. But if you take the Kawana Bay project, although it's been stalled, it's been funded by CBI revenues. If you go to the beautiful Six Senses at Lassages, which is an exceptional hotel, it has been funded via the CBI program. The Intercontinental, which is being built right next door to it, is also being funded by CBI revenues. Silver Sands Beach House, which is another exquisite property, has also been funded via the CBI revenue. The CBI is providing direct revenues to the government of Grenada, and that is funding a number of projects, infrastructure projects. For example, the Monkuma Road was funded via the CBI revenue. So I can go on and on. Hundreds of persons have been employed through the construction industry. Tens of persons have been employed directly in the CBI industry itself. Grenada Cooperative Bank has made millions of dollars via the CBI industry. It has made it one of the most liquid banks, and therefore it should be in a position to lend even more to our citizens. So it is a program that has benefited Grenada tremendously, and many of the persons who make an investment via the citizenship by investment route are very successful persons that essentially become part of Grenada's diaspora that we can draw on for technical expertise and support in many areas. And many of them have actually since begun looking at investing directly onshore in Grenada. So it has been a significant benefit to Grenada.
And we have another question via WhatsApp. Clivia or Sylvia Damis St. Louis. Hope I am not butchering your name. Traffic physical planning. With regards to parking on our roads, can we institute fees for parking, and can the Ministry of Planning start to ensure plans submitted include parking for at least one vehicle?
Well, I think I could only answer and say yes to both of what you recommended, but it's a process. The truth is, we have gotten to a point where when you have unplanned development and rapid development in certain aspects, that the infrastructure doesn't match up with. So we've had a massive importation of vehicles in Grenada over the last 10 to 15 years. I think the Commissioner of Police said we may have as many as 80,000 vehicles on our roads. By the way, the population of Grenada is about 110,000, give or take. So there's almost one vehicle for every person already. So you could understand why we have the challenges. And many persons actually don't have the land space to park. So it's something I've raised. The Transport Commission is working on a plan to submit to Cabinet and to stakeholders for review to see how we begin to address the parking issue. But it's not just the question of issuing fines or tickets. As I said, the question of how many more vehicles we allow to be imported, the questions of doing communal car parks or maybe even vertical car parks where we build up, the issue of supporting more public transportation so that people feel less pressured to buy a private vehicle. All of those things will have to be taken into account if we are going to address the traffic congestion and the parking situation that we face. There's also a lot of derelict vehicles, vehicles that break down. So all of that has to be addressed, and I think certainly for the planning authority, paying greater attention to parking is something that also has to be factored in terms of giving approvals. But we don't have a lot of flat land, and in many instances, I guess people try and utilize as much of the land as they can to build. But the truth is we can't have the main public roads being used as private car parks for people. So there's something that has to be addressed.
And I'm sure not every person who builds goes through planning to get approval. If you're building a little house or whatever the case might be, you just throw it up and then you get a car somewhere along the way and it becomes, the road becomes your driveway.
And in many instances, people have built, and what you had was tracks ready to access their homes, and over time we've managed to widen or put a concrete strip here or there, and then come the cars and the vans and sometimes the trucks, and it creates a lot of challenges. So it is a major challenge. Small islands like Grenada may have to benefit from technology that allows cars to fly in the next 5 to 10 years if we are going to address the the congestion. So, investing in Tesla and other companies that are
That
doing
is
these
not a
kinds
word
of
we use
investment,
anymore.
it's part of what we may have to consider. But certainly, it's a major challenge that I think the country will have to engage in, and hopefully we can get to some consensus where we can agree on what are some of the measures we need to take.
We have another question via WhatsApp from Asia. How soon can the 224 teachers expect to be regularized, and will they receive retroactive payments?
My understanding is that the regularization is actually ongoing and has already commenced. Cabinet certainly has approved it. I expect the Public Service Commission, if it has not already approved it, to be doing so, and that should take place. I honestly can't speak without further briefing as to whether there is a retroactive component of it. If, to my mind, I don't want to say yes or no and give inaccurate information. I would have to check with P.S. Marshall from the Department of Public Administration and the PS in the Ministry of Education to verify that. But I certainly know that the retroactive process is ongoing. If the teachers have not yet received official correspondence, then they certainly should be receiving it shortly.
And another one via WhatsApp from Randy. As Minister for National Security, what is your government's plan for prison reform and rehabilitation of the incarcerated individuals?
Right. So thank you, Randy, for the question. The prison itself runs rehabilitation courses. There are opportunities for inmates to be educated at the prison, to sit CXC exams. There are opportunities for them to learn trade and skills. There's counseling that takes place. We have also been working with NGOs like Adult and Teen Challenge to assist with the rehabilitation and reintegration of inmates into society when it happens. There are a lot of supply side pressures. So, for example, the prison obviously was not meant to hold a number of persons it's holding, and oftentimes people are sent on remand, meaning they are not yet tried, but they have not been granted bail and they're in the prison system. So we have to get to a point where hopefully for more serious crimes people may be on remand, but for less serious crimes, we don't need to have them in the prison system. We also have to, look at what do we send people to prison for. A lot of the traffic offenses and so on, where bus drivers are being sent to prisons and so on. Honestly, this is nonsense, right? These are traffic offenses. These are more commercial offenses, and I think it will probably hurt a bus driver to be paying a larger fine or to have his license revoked than to be sent to prison, because to me that's counterintuitive. So on the sentencing side, we have to be able to clearly distinguish between things that require incarceration and those that don't. But we also have to work on making sure that we do not over-criminalize behavior, and particularly for young men, where sometimes what you have is behavioral challenges, and it leads to violence and so on, and you end up in prison, which then increases the risk that you then become a career criminal rather than someone who needs assistance. So, things like alternative sentencing and so on are issues that we need to work on, making sure that we can teach people how to mediate the differences, or they can speak to each other. All of these are some of the issues that we need to address. We are actually reviewing the plans to see whether a new prison can be constructed as well. So we're also looking at that, and hopefully if we're able to do so, it will actually allow us to be able to distinguish between more serious career criminals who perhaps are beyond redemption and those who can be saved. And we're hoping that over time the prison population itself could be reduced. But that is a long-term project.
That was my next question, because somewhere I sit, the prison sits on one of the best pieces of geography in the entire Caribbean. So I was wondering if we have any plans of relocating it to another spot. All right. So, folks, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we have some DMs from the street. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a bit.
It's like the water pure and clean. It's a comfort anytime you need it. It's for everybody, fresh and green. You can count on us, there's nothing like it. It's homegrown. It's island pure. It's homegrown.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM. And if you're just joining us, you've missed quite a bit, but I hope you will catch up at some point. If you are on the live, please remember to share so more of our friends and family at home and in the diaspora will get the opportunity to be part of this interactive program. To the YouTubers, the Facebookers, and those of you listening via radio, thank you so much for staying with us. Now, we're going to take a different direction with DMs from the PM. We're going to look at DMs from the street, and then we'll come back with some more of your questions.
This is Deandra Ladd here. I have a question for you, Mr. Prime Minister. What's your plans for the development or the restoration of the natural works in Lasajas, St. David's?
Oh, that's a good question, and I'm happy it's been asked.
It's home.
We are working actively on restoration of Lasajas natural works. In fact, I've had several meetings almost every 2 weeks in the last month with the team of the Ministry of Infrastructure. So in brief, we intend to create a vendors market at the what I will call eastern and northeastern section of the compound. That's the side facing the main road and to the right of the main historical building. And we plan to restore the historical building itself. As you are aware, it's a historic building. You have the coppers and so on that are there. You have the water wheel. You have the stonework, which is traditional stonework. So we plan to restore all of this. We are hoping to deal with the vendors' booth first. And the reason for that, as you probably would already recognize, there is a proliferation of roadside vending throughout the eastern main road leading up to Lasajas. It's unsafe. Many of the vendors don't have water, they don't have electricity, there is no chillers. It's risky to be on the roadside in many instances. So we recognize that there is no market outside of Grenville Market and outside of the Tongue of St. George Market on the entire eastern coast. In fact, that includes the entire Grand and South area. So the idea is to create as many booths as possible so that we can have a concentration of vendors and people can go in and get the various items, whether it's fresh food, fruit, vegetables, meat, if possible. And then we intend to restore the historical building to create a museum for St. David, to create a play area and entertainment for children, and to create a restaurant and a commercial area that can also host things like weddings and so on. We're actually looking at the possibility of doing two tiers of booths, so that we can also have some commercial retail space. So for example, if you need a doctor's office, a dental office, hairdressing, those sort of things, because we really don't have any place where that is concentrated. We actually already have some conceptual drawings that the team is working on, and I'm hoping that we can have some public engagement with the public in St. David and be able to showcase and get their feedback. So
St. David's town?
Not quite. It's just
getting there.
A little mini market.
We have another DM from the street.
My name is Neela Ranger. I go to St. Andrews Anglican Primary School, and I would like to know when the Prime Minister is going to rebuild the Balthazar St. Andrews Bridge.
All right, it's a very good question, and you are well informed. There is a program known as GEEP, and the Balthazar St. Andrews Bridge is one of the bridges that is earmarked to be rebuilt. In fact, I think we are already at the point where we may need some of the residents to be relocated who are close to the bridge, because we are going to have to do two things. When we rebuild the bridge, we are also going to have a temporary bridge for persons to use so that they can continue traversing. So work is well advanced on this, and hopefully, all things being equal, by next year we can see construction starting.
Okay. Another DM from the street.
Hi, my name is Chloe Charles, and I would like to know what inspired the Prime Minister to become who he is today. Was it his childhood dream?
Nice. I like that question.
Hi, Chloe. No, it wasn't my childhood dream, but I think, over time, my experiences in Grenada have, I always say this, Grenada has been very good to me. I'm happy that I got the opportunity to be born in Grenada, to be educated in Grenada, and to be successful in Grenada. And I think if you get that opportunity and there's an opportunity for you to serve others, then certainly you should take the opportunity. But I would say in terms of getting into politics itself, I would certainly admit that the period of COVID-19 gave me the opportunity to reflect a lot and to think about what I wanted to do in my life coming out of COVID. And it partly inspired me. A lot of what happened during COVID partly inspired me to get involved in public life.
Another DMs from the street.
All right, so my name is Mark John, and I'm a young and upcoming farmer in St. Andrews. And my question to the PM is, what programs do you have in place for farmers who are interested in agriculture and want to see the country basically self-sustaining itself, but for some reason have a lack of land, unavailability of land? I see that there are many Crown lands. What programs are you have in place to disseminate some lands to those farmers who are interested?
Thank you, and a very good question, and rightly so. You can't farm without land. So there are some Crown estates left that we are currently reviewing to see how we can make some of it available to the public, particularly young farmers for farming. In many instances, we met leases in place with these Crown estates, but the lessees have not either farmed or complied with their obligations. So the Ministry of Lands, together with the Attorney General's office, is reviewing those leases to determine whether we can terminate the leases and be able to get the lands back for access to the public. So that's one thing we're doing. Second, we have been working on putting together a land bank where private persons who have land but don't no longer have the labor to work them or may not be interested in selling them but want the land to go under cultivation, we are seeking to put the land in the land bank and then be able to make it available to young farmers who are interested. And thirdly, we are also working with other private citizens who may have land available and may be prepared to lease those lands to young farmers. But I also want to emphasize that we need to ensure that we invest significantly in technology as well, because we have to be able to produce more from less land. And one way of doing so, obviously, is making sure that there's significant investment in technology, whether it's hydroponics, whether it's greenhouses, to see how we can help boost agriculture. So those are just some of the things that the Ministry of Lands is working on, but we do recognize that to some extent that land is a challenge, and we have to find ways to make sure that younger persons in particular get the opportunity to have access to lands.
Okay. Very good questions. We have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm calling concerning a piece of land that we had bid for in the Supreme Court, and we finished paying for the land, and after we finished the land, like the people who we bid the land for, like they just leave us in the rain, concerning to get our papers and stuff for the land, the deed and plan for the land.
I'm not sure I'm following the question. Was the government involved in the process, or this was just
a
private matter?
Well, as the Supreme Court, I thought government was involved because the land located in Grenada, and it was because of the cap bank, and if people take a loan, somebody take a loan on the land, and that we have to pay back the money for that loan that they took from cap bank years ago.
Okay, well, I'm not sure I'm following, to be honest. So I think you may actually need to get a lawyer if you don't have one to be able to help you deal with the process at the court. So not because a matter is in court means the government is involved. The judiciary, the judges, the Supreme Court is separate from the executive, which is led by the Prime Minister. So unless it is government land itself, the government wouldn't have any involvement. So my recommendation to you would be, if you don't yet have a lawyer, that you should get one to make sure that they can help explain to you what the process is. And I'm not clear on the Cap Bank matter. If there was a loan that someone took from Cap Bank and they gave the land as security, if you did not pay the loan, then there's the risk that the land would be sold by Cap Bank and someone would be able to buy it. But I'm not clear. So I think you should get a lawyer to help you in this matter.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Jasmine Joseph on the live wants to know if you have any lands available close to your residence. Mr. PM, would you like to open a business close to you?
I don't even think I have a residence, That's the government official. Jasmine, no. I don't have any lands.
And we have a caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Good evening to Mr. PM and good evening to you, Aruna. Mr.
Welcome.
PM, I just want you to tell us, if you could, how many poor people that your government assists from taking them out of the pit toilet into the flushing toilet. And the reason why I ask, Mr. PM, every program you all start you're hearing the people on the other side saying that is their program. They had it in the pipeline. So I would like to compare 3 years of assisting the poor and vulnerable from pit latrine to flush toilet, and let me hit 10 years under the other side, how many people they access, because to be truthful, I hear this is their program. But I listened to Ms. Delmar in Parliament once, and she said the NNP never had a budget for this program. What they had, she went by an old man and visit him, and when she see the condition, she said no, she want to help that man, and that man get a flush toilet. But they say that was a good program, but I don't know how much people they help. So could you please, if you can, answer the question this week?
Thank you so much,
Next time
caller.
the program, could you tell us, please?
Thank you.
So thank you, and it's a very incisive and insightful question. So I think to avoid speculating, I will heed your counsel, get the statistics, and provide it at the next show, because the programs are ongoing. The WASH program, actually, we are expanding it in a number of other villages in the coming months. So we will get the statistics as to how many persons we have impacted thus far. I can certainly say to you, in St. David alone, if we just take the village of Belial alone, that we have done and assisted more persons in that village alone than the former administration did for all of St. David in the last 10 years. So I will get the statistics and present them at the next occasion.
Okay. And callers, we ask that you please keep your questions as brief as possible so we can entertain much more callers, as we know time is of the essence. We have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller.
Hello, good evening. Hello, Prime Minister.
Good
I cannot
evening.
believe I'm talking to you. So my question is, many of Grenada's sectors do manual record taking. So sectors such as the healthcare system and the justice system, right? The problem being that certain data may be lost, damaged. I believe long wait times in the general hospital is probably due to manual scheduling, right? So what efforts are being made to create a transition from manual record taking to digital record taking? Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And the caller perhaps has not heard me say in the past how much I dislike paper in an age of digital technology. And the government is committed to systematically transforming as many of the government departments as we can to have digital record taking. So at the hospital, for example, we have to scan decades of files to be able to at least first digitize the existing records. The same for places like the Deeds and Land Registry, the Supreme Court Registry, in fact, all government departments. So we already have in some instances, for example, the Prime Minister's office, it's completely digitized. You can't enter my office with paper. I sign every document electronically, and we are moving about this systematically. The CBI Investment Migration Office, they've now gone on digitized. We're working with the Home Affairs Office, where you have a citizenship certificates being issued. That process is being digitized as well. So over time, we have to, again, I met with the Home Office team last week. They indicated that they have records from 1984. So that's 41 years of records that we have to scan, and then the plan then would be to transition into electronic record taking. So all of government actually needs to be transformed so that we can minimize the risk of loss, we can minimize the paper, the mold. A lot of the things that the staff suffers from is 40 years of paper, and the mold and the dust and the heat. So it is something that the port, the customs, the airport, the caller raised the issue of the ED cards. So again, moving to an electronic online ED card system will save the paper, it's costly, etc. So we are committed to doing so. It, however, would require change management. You know, if people are used to paper after 40 years, telling them to do it on the computer requires a lot of nudging, a lot of support systems in place. But we are committed to doing it because it would make all of our lives a lot easier. As you know, you can pay your taxes online, for example, rather than having to go and walk with a paper at any of the revenue offices. So we have commenced, but it will require a systematic support. Because the other risk, obviously, with online things, you have cybersecurity, you have to make sure that you have reliable internet, etc. But we are committed to doing so, caller, and thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. And we have another caller online. Caller, good evening.
afternoon.
Welcome. And make your question as brief as possible, please. Go ahead.
Yes, I have two questions, it's both concerning the airport. One is when I send people to Grenada and looking for a good review, when they come home, they want to eat all the local foods we have in Grenada. And the problem I'm having is when they're leaving our international airport, they cannot get that. When they're coming into our international airport, there are not enough that you can give to them that they can take away. Me being representing our country and our culture with the food that we have, which is number one organ. We don't have to, we should have something in place. So the restaurant, at least on the airport, we can have something that is cultural. And secondly, quickly, I also want to know why is it other islands are being allowed to stay in Grenada and they don't have a time to leave. But if I go to another country like Barbados, St. Vincent, and Guyana, I have 17 days to leave. And in Grenada, you can come and stay as long as you wish. Thank you, Prime Minister, if you can answer for me. Thank you so much.
Well, on the second question, I would answer by saying it's a clear demonstration that Grenada is committed to treating our brothers and sisters from the CARICOM with the full rights that we all believe we are all ascribing to under the CARICOM single market and economy. The truth is, a brother from St. Vincent, from Guyana, from Barbados, if you ask me, should be able to come in Grenada and stay as long as he wish. Similarly, Grenadians should be able to go to these islands and stay as long as we wish. We need to move beyond paying lip service to issues of free movement of people and free movement and the Caribbean single market and the economy. And somebody has to lead. If we play tit for tat, then we will continue disappointing our CARICOM citizens about regional unity and so on. So if we say, well, St. Vincent is not doing it, so Grenada doesn't do it, then obviously we will continue and we'll never be able to move forward. And let's face it, Grenada is a beautiful place. If I was from St. Vincent, I'd certainly want to spend time in Grenada. Again, the concessionaires at the airport, I think they've heard you loud and clear, and hopefully we can encourage some of them who sell food to sell more local food, to sell the oil long, to sell things that are unique and distinct to Grenada. So thank you for the observation.
Okay. We have another caller online. Caller, good evening.
Good evening, PM.
Good evening.
So my question tonight is, when most of us as single mothers are suffering, like for instance, domestic violence and so, we are told to reach out. So I want to know, for instance, in some cases, some of us may need housing. When we reach out, some of the parliamentary reps that actually say would be giving attitude, and sometimes some of us are forced to remain in the same situation. So I would like to know what else that I could do. You know, who else I could actually go to actually get help, please.
Okay. Thank you, caller.
All right, so thank you for that. Actually, the appropriate department to go through is the Ministry of Social and Community Development. There's actually a unit in there that deals specifically with women or mothers or even children who are at risk from domestic or other violence. It's actually not, strictly speaking, the parliamentary offices. They do not have the resources, the manpower, the training to actually deal with sensitive issues like that. So I think, one, if a criminal offense is being committed, you obviously need to report it to the police. And even if you report it to the police in turn will report it to social and community development so that the appropriate support can be provided. And so that is important for I think, persons who are in that situation. And I get the sense from what the caller is suggesting that she may be in that situation. So it's important for the caller to engage with the Ministry of Social and Community Development. There's a specific unit in there that addresses those issues, and we'll be able to provide the type of support and counseling that is required. The parliamentary offices are not equipped, nor do we have staff who are trained to deal with such issues. Having said that, obviously, I think for all parliamentarians, if someone says they're in such a situation, I expect that they will show empathy and will also give them the advice which I'm giving, which is to encourage them to reach out to social and community development, reach out to the police, but also reach out to other family members and any other support system that you may have to be able to help you navigate some of this. That sometimes include reaching out to churches or other NGOs who help with this. And specific to children, we have the Child Protection Authority, which is also important to help protect our children in the event they find themselves in a similar situation.
We have another caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to the Honorable Prime Minister. I have a question, but if someone already asked it, sorry about that. I just tuned in.
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to know the present condition of the Prime Minister residence in Tatusi. Could you give us an update on that building and what is taking place there, and how soon you will be renovating or going there in the future? I'd just like to.
Thank you.
Right, so thank you, caller, for the question. The building is carded for renovation. We are hoping that the renovation can commence this year. The team from the Ministry of Infrastructure has been working on improvements to the architectural design and to general renovation. As you may be aware, when we assumed office, the building was not livable. It appears as if it had not been lived in for quite a while outside of the what I will call outer buildings that the security detail was using. The main building itself was not functional, and so it requires some significant work to make it functional, not just for whoever will hold the office of Prime Minister, but all of the support staff that will come with it, the security detail, housekeepers, etc. We are hoping to, the renovation is, at least from the architectural design, it's mostly internal changes and some additional amenities. We are hoping that the residence can be used as an official meeting place. Because as it stands now, for example, if you have large visiting foreign delegations, based on the current construct of the ministerial complex, there's literally no place to house them, or host them, sorry, outside of the cabinet room, which to some extent is also a bit cumbersome because you have one significant large table in there with all the chairs around. So we are hoping that we can actually have dedicated space where if you are visiting foreign nationals, other heads of state, you can host the meetings there, both in terms of the ceremonial aspect, the working aspect, and if necessary that, you know, a prime minister also visiting from another country needs a room to sleep over in the night, that we can afford some basic amenities of statehood for visiting colleagues. So hopefully the work will commence, and we expect that once it commences, within 12 months, it should be complete.
Okay. Good evening, caller.
Hi, good evening, Ms. Neptune. Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister.
Welcome.
Good evening.
All right, my name is Shekar Kotni. Recently, in a session that you held at St. David, you spoke about the issue of boys and reading. We are aware that our system has been failing our boys in terms of how we nurture and raise, how we treat them in the education system, how we treat them in the justice system. For instance, if a boy at 15 commits the same crime as a girl at 15, they are treated way differently than the girl. Hence, you have a high population rate in the prison of men and in the Grand Baccalaureate Center of boys as opposed to girls. So, Mr. Prime Minister, considering that we have these challenges and our system is failing boys, I am putting the challenge to you respectfully and your male cabinet colleagues to start the conversation or the dialogue on how do we treat with that situation, and let's see if we can turn back, should I say, the hands of time and try to get our boys back to being respectable, being able to achieve all that they set out to be, and being able to be proud citizens of the state of Grenada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, caller. Very good question.
Thank you, and I actually welcome the challenge. It's something I feel very passionately about. We have to come to grips, and I think even when I was in high school, by that time it was clear to me that we were observing trends about boys' performance in education, boys' significant abuse of what it's all called other substances, the fact that the prison population is almost exclusively male, the fact that girls are outperforming boys on almost every level of the education system, including skills. The fact that if you drive around Grenada, you don't see women in the rum shop. You don't see women idling. It is almost largely men. So it is clear that something has gone fundamentally wrong with the way in which we are educating and raising men. And that fundamental going wrong is also reflected in the issue we raised earlier about men not actually being fathers. You know, and we have to be able to recognize this requires all hands on deck. There's no point in blaming the women, because we may say it's the women raising the men. There's no point in blaming the men. As a society, we have to work collectively to address this. It means the education system, it means the religious communities have to become involved. We have to look at what we are doing right, what we are not doing wrong, how we speak to men, how we educate them, how we ask them to learn. All of those things, I think, requires a significant review. And I hope the caller will, as a man, join all of us in having those conversations, and it is something I am quite eager to support, and hopefully, you know, as a country we could find ways that we could all work together to begin to address it. But if we don't address it, the society will fail.
Before we take the next call, recently the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Persad-Bissessar, went on record to say that moving forward, she is looking to press for students who either fight or disrupt the classes or what have you. They are moving away from just suspending or expelling, but in some cases looking to press charges, criminal charges against students who are either involved in violence in schools. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the situation in Trinidad is obviously dramatically different from Grenada, so I really don't feel I could comment fairly or even second guess the thoughts of the Honorable Prime Minister. I've lived in Trinidad. I studied in law school there for 2 years, so I think I fully understand the level of insecurity, the level of crime and violence that permeates Trinidad and Tobago and some of our brothers and sisters. And, you know, regionally, we've deemed crime a public health challenge at risk, and we actually believe violence is contagious, and because people tend to do what they see. I don't want Grenada to even have 1 billion of the kind of violence and crime that Trinidad has to cope with. So I think it's important for us to understand that violence begets violence. And we have to start fundamentally with re-educating ourselves at the earliest opportunity as to how we are able to navigate some of the things that leads to violence. And if we don't do that, then we run the risk of all of us having a slow march to Haiti. That's the reality. So there is the glorification of guns, there's the glorification of violence, there's the numbing and dumbing down of violent behavior, of crude language. We have to recognize that these are things that we have to push back against, and we have to talk about those things, because if we don't, and if we don't educate ourselves properly about it, then we will become a violent society, and it becomes even more difficult to address some of the concerns that we are raising in men. So there's no silver magic bullet, but there are countries which used to be very violent and have been able to turn the clock. Sometimes it may take tough action, as in the kind of things the Honorable Prime Minister of Trinidad has talked about, but in addition to tough action, you also need education. The two, in my view, will go hand in hand, because you want to discourage criminality, but at the same time you also want to encourage young men in particular to find positive reasons for living and to engage in wholesome and upright and supportive behavior. So it's a complex issue, but I think for us in Grenada, we are still fortunate, and we should ensure that we start as early as possible to make sure that our boys in particular are educated the right way, have the right value system, see themselves the right way, and particularly see women and children and their peers in a positive light, so that we don't have to resolve things through violence.
Okay. Viewers and listeners, we have to take a quick break, and we are quickly coming to the end of the program, but we'll be right back in just a little bit.
Welcome to the Cinnamon Model, one of the many stunning designs in Project 500. The home offers 944 square feet of living space, not including the veranda. It includes 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a dedicated laundry storage area, all centered around an open kitchen, living, and dining space for everyday comfort. In the current view, would work at 70% completion, having rough plumbing already in place, electrical, interior walls, and ceiling finishes to be installed soon.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to DMs with PM. And I have a WhatsApp DM here. This person is asking, patrons of Carriacou being given financial assistance by the government to purchase materials in hardware stores, Hubbards and Paddy's after the hurricane are unable to buy materials from said stores due to previous outstanding invoices not being paid by the government. When will this be resolved?
The matter is being resolved. So we have to appreciate what happened in Carriacou and Pitimatic. You had a disaster of significant magnitude. So it means, in a sense, all systems, including the government systems, would have been challenged. And so what you had is a situation where this is not business as usual. You would have had to support not just the usual government payments for staff and so on, you're literally dealing with everything, from the cleanup to the removal of the boats to even the hardware stores themselves, having to also deal with their staff and their own internal accounting systems and so on. So what would have happened is, obviously, we focused largely on making sure that people had the materials. And remember, the government works in a budget cycle. So if invoices were not processed and paid by the end of the budget cycle, which traditionally would have been December, we would have granted an extension to March, because obviously we didn't read the new budget until April. And so with that process, you would have delays, because you would have to essentially wrap up the first accounting period and then get into the second accounting period, all the time while not stopping the action, so to speak. So what we've done is to since reallocate funds, more funds to Carriacou and Petit Martinique, so that we could begin to ensure that some of these firms are paid the outstanding sums. They may not have received the checks as of today immediately, but certainly we expect that by the end of Friday, most of them should be well on their way to having the funds paid. But that is going to be an ongoing issue, because obviously Carriacou and Petit Martinique are going to, in a sense, suck up a lot more resources than ordinarily they would have. So this is something that's going to be ongoing. There will be reallocation of funds from other votes to continue supporting the rebuilding and repair efforts in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. So the firms, whether it's Paddy's, whether it's Hubbard's, or any other firms, should have no fear that the government will meet and will continue meeting the obligations. And we want to thank them for working along with us in what has been an extraordinarily difficult time for the people of Carriacou and Petit Martinique. Okay.
Now, Mr. PM, of course, you are a father, so happy Father's Day in advance.
Thank you.
And before we leave, what message would you leave to the fathers of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique as we observe Father's Day on Sunday?
Well, first, I think it's a positive one. I really want to encourage and support the fathers who are playing a significant role in the lives of their children and the lives of the mothers of the children, because you can't have one without the other. And also to encourage other men who they know have children and who may not be supportive, to be supportive, to encourage them, to mentor them, to support them, because too often it's easy for us to discourage rather than encourage, to be positive and to take an uplifting approach to fatherhood. It is the relationship with the child that matters more often than the material things. And you would find that your children will appreciate that as they themselves grow old. The relationship, rather than just whether you provided things or you gave them other things to give to them. So I want the fathers to stay positive. I want them to continue supporting our children, continue supporting our mothers, and by extension, the extended family. And I want to encourage mothers and sisters and aunts to also encourage more of the men that they are with to take their fatherhood seriously. The Ministry of Social and Community Development is running parenting classes. The Honorable Minister Gloria Thomas is very passionate about this. And there's a young lady who gave a testimonial on Friday at the Malmont Community Center when she talked about herself taking part in this parenting classes and how much it significantly helped her to address a lot of the anger management issues she had with herself, which had nothing to do with her children, but which she was taking out on her children, and how it allowed her to develop and to have a better relationship with her children. And I want to encourage men in particular to also do so. So happy Father's Day to all of the fathers who are playing an active role. Happy Father's Day to the fathers who are not playing an active role, and hopefully you will use this opportunity as the beginning to reflect and to get more involved in your children's lives.
And on that note, viewers and listeners, yes, we've come to the end of yet another DMs with PM. Time literally flies, right? But you have the opportunity to join us again next Tuesday, same time, right here. And of course, just want to say special thanks to Power FM, Fusion FM, Vibes FM, Carriacou, Hot 98, Star FM, We FM, Top FM for bringing this live. And of course, to those of you on Facebook and YouTube, as always, you've been a wonderful audience, and we thank you so very much for tuning in. And of course, we thank you so much for your questions.